All right, let's talk about something that is, well, it's everywhere right now. Generative AI and how it's changing learning. We're all hearing about it. A lot of us are probably using it. And, the research is starting to show this really interesting kind of double-edged effect on how we learn. So, is it a shortcut or is it a super tool? Let's dive in.
I mean, this really is the big question, right? Is this stuff just a shortcut that's going to make us dumber, or is it a super tool that could actually make us smarter? You've got one camp saying it's just fancy cheating, that it's going to turn our brains to mush. And then you have the other camp saying, no, this is revolutionary, it could unlock our potential. So which one is it? Well, what the research is showing is that the answer is, it's a bit complicated.
And here's why it's complicated. This is the core conflict, what researchers are calling the double-edged effect. On the one hand, yeah, it can absolutely hinder essential skills. It can reduce critical thinking, chip away at our writing practice, and for sure, create a real dependency. But on the other hand, it can be a massive boost. It can act like a tireless personal tutor. It can speed up research like you wouldn't believe, and it can even spark our own creativity.
And we're not just talking about little tasks here and there. The skills that are really on the line are both super specific, domain-specific stuff like writing an essay, but also those much bigger general competencies. Things like the 6 C's of deep learning, the really foundational stuff like creativity and critical thinking. GenAI has the power to either totally undermine or seriously amplify these very building blocks of how we learn. So let's start by looking at the side of the coin that has so many people worried, and for good reason: the risks. When does this amazing technology stop being a tool and start becoming a crutch that actually holds us back from learning?
Well, the most obvious danger is that when we lean on AI too much for the answers, we skip the hard part. We skip the mental struggle. And honestly, it's inside that struggle where the real learning actually happens. And there's maybe no place where this risk is clearer than with a skill as fundamental as writing.
Yeah, check this out. This quote comes from a really powerful study out of the MIT Media Lab. They had students use ChatGPT to write essays, and the results were, well, they were just kind of bland. Soulless was the word they used. But here's the really alarming part. By the time they got to the 3rd essay, a lot of the students had just given up. They just let the AI do all the work. So they weren't learning how to write better. They were just getting really good at copy and paste.
And this goes way beyond just writing. Critical thinking takes a nosedive when we just accept whatever the AI spits out without questioning it. Our creativity can get stifled by what's called a fixation effect. Once you see the AI's idea, it's actually harder to come up with your own original one. Perseverance, that gets eroded when you can just shortcut your way through any tough problem. And maybe the biggest one of all, our memory takes a huge hit because of a concept called cognitive offloading. So what the heck is cognitive offloading? Basically, it's outsourcing your brain. Instead of wrestling with a concept and doing the work to lock it into your memory, you just let a tool, like your phone or an AI, hold that information for you. The problem is, that bypasses the deep mental work that you need to do to form long-term memories. The knowledge never really becomes yours. In that same MIT study, when they quizzed the students later without the AI, they remembered almost nothing. Okay, so after hearing all that, the knee-jerk reaction might be, that's it, ban it, get it out of the classroom. And that seems like the safest thing to do, right? But what's so fascinating is that the research strongly suggests that would be a huge mistake. There's another, much more powerful path we can take. So let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this story, the rewards. What happens when we completely shift our mindset and start using AI not as a crutch, but as a catalyst for way deeper, more effective learning? Okay, remember how AI could totally destroy writing skills? Well, get this. A study found that a whopping 78% of students said Gen AI actually helped them improve their writing. So wait a minute, how can both of these things be true? It all comes down to the process. The key difference is who's in the driver's seat. In the shortcut model, the AI does the work. But in this super tool model, the student does the work, and the AI is just a coach. So the student writes that first message draft. Then they use the AI to get feedback on things like grammar or flow. And here's the most important step. The student then has to actively take that feedback and use it to improve their own work. They stay in control. They are the author. They are the thinker. And this coach idea, it applies to everything. Just imagine having a tireless, infinitely patient personal tutor that's there for you 24/7. If you're stuck on a physics concept, the AI can explain it. If you still don't get it, it can explain it a totally different way, maybe with an analogy or by breaking it down into tiny pieces until it just clicks. That's a level of one-on-one support that is just impossible to scale with human teachers alone.
And this brings us to the good side of cognitive offloading, what we could call freeing up cognitive load. See, when you strategically hand off the boring, tedious, low-level stuff, like summarizing 10 articles or formatting your bibliography, you don't get dumber. You actually get smarter because you free up precious brain power to focus on what really matters, that higher-order thinking, like analyzing all that evidence and synthesizing brand new ideas.
Okay, so we've seen both sides now. We've seen the crutch and we've seen the catalyst. This brings us to the playbook. How do you make sure you're using AI as a super tool and not as a shortcut? It all boils down to your approach. This table really sums it up perfectly. Look at writing. The shortcut is letting the AI write the essay for you. The super tool is having the AI give you feedback on your draft. Or research. The shortcut is just copying an answer. The super tool is having AI summarize sources that you then analyze. Creativity? The shortcut is taking the first idea the AI gives you. The super tool is using AI to help you brainstorm a bunch of options that you then develop. You see the pattern? In every single case, the super tool approach keeps you, in charge of the critical thinking.
Here's probably the simplest and best analogy for this. You would never give a kid a calculator before they even understand what multiplication is, right? You teach them how to do long division by hand first. The exact same idea applies here. The best practice that's emerging is learn the basics yourself, get that foundation down, and then use AI as a booster rocket to go further fast.
Because at the end of the day, the goal here isn't to create students who are dependent on AI. It's to create learners who are empowered by it, people who can wield these incredible tools to make their own uniquely human strengths, like critical thinking, creativity, and self-direction, even stronger. Because, look, generative AI, it isn't going anywhere. It's being woven into the very fabric of our world. So the real question we have to ask ourselves isn't if we're going to learn with AI. It's what kind of learners are we going to choose to be? Are we going to be the passive passenger who just takes the shortcut? Or are we going to be the pilot who grabs the controls and uses this super tool to fly to whole new heights? The choice really is ours.